This is Chris at Art Secrets Studio, and we're in the middle of a charcoal series. I'm doing something, a little girl that I painted once, and I'd like to show you my processes. And this is step 2, where I start to use a charcoal pencil, why I use it, and how. So we've laid it in, and now we're kind of marching through it. When I use charcoal pencils, I like the General's charcoal pencil, and I really just want the 4B soft. They come in every hardness. It's a compressed charcoal, so it doesn't want to erase. So you have to be very careful where you use it and when. So I know I'm going to leave my highlight white. So I'm actually going to do an eyeball, and it's one of the reasons I use the charcoal pencil. And I'm going to put the pupil in black first, and I'm going to try to leave the white of the highlight right next to it. Now, I want that highlight to stand out, so the iris has to be a little darker next to that highlight, but not as dark as the white of the eye, or the white highlight. And then there's some eyelashes that are coming up. She's got just a couple eyelashes here. And now all of a sudden my lines are getting a little strong, so I'm going to take a stump and smear them, because your lines have to get blurrier and softer farther away. So you want them sharp closer to you. And I'm dragging the pupil into the iris. Now something happens with the eyeball, and that is the white of the eye, that white highlight right here, that white's coming out the other corner of the eye right here. So it's going to be lighter in the iris on the opposite side. So I'm going to go to a pencil to see if I can be in a little more control here. It's a little darker, so that highlight's a little too big. I want the highlight to be sharp and that black line to be not as sharp. And then everyone has this black ridge line going around their eye, but if I put that in, it's not going to look realistic. So I'm going to take the stump and smear it. And then the white of the eye gets darker farther away, so I'm just going to smear it with the stump and touch lighter and lighter as it gets closer to me. So where are the other places I would use a charcoal pencil in a drawing? Well, the nostril, at the point closest to me right here is the most contrast. I'm going to put it right there. And then as that nostril moves away from you physically, I'm going to start smearing that nostril and let it become not as sharp and not as dark. And then there's a shadow here, but I'm trying to leave that sharp line if I can. And it looks like that nostril's not quite big enough, so I'm going to darken it. And then instantly take the stump and smear it. Another place I could use the charcoal is the edge of the lip closer to me, and then let it get lighter as it goes away. And then I'm going to take the stump to it. And because there's nothing else white in the painting, it really is jumping off the page and looking a little weird. So I'm going to take the eraser and see if I can help it a little bit. I'm just going to make little lines to break it up. So I need to start working on her with some charcoal. So I'm going to take, I have a choice though. I could take pencil here and just work on it with the pencil to gradually build her up to get that forehead color. And the eye socket's in shadow. And this shadow down here. Side of the nose. Chin, side of the face. So anything I'm afraid to use the charcoal in, I'm just going to use the F pencil. But you have to be real careful because what happens is I'm going to cross hatch with a stump. So I'm changing my stroke direction and smearing. What happens now, if I press too hard with a graphite, the charcoal won't go over it. So I'm trying to do just the in-between values. So let's see what the charcoal is going to do. This is going to be a little scary. Having another eyeball wouldn't be bad either, by the way. I'm just going to block in a value just so you can see it. So you can see the weave of the paper coming through now. And I like to get rid of that weave. I love having the weave, and at the same time, it's a love-hate relationship. I need to get rid of it and hide it. But because there's not a solid line, it breaks it up. So I'm going to take this stump and just kind of smear it in there. And the charcoal is being used very lightly. You didn't see me use my finger there. And then I feel like there's too many whites. So anything that I'm going to leave white, like a highlight, I have to work around the highlight to make the highlight look white. And then I can go back with my eraser if I feel like my drawing's getting a little off. So I can just start to erase in here before I get too dark. Bring back the mediums. I'll start erasing some wispy hairs over the shading. So I've made a point with the eraser, and I'm just going to drag it over and make some light lines. I think I can start to put some of her hair in here. So even when I make my marks, Some marks are real strong, some are kind of medium, and then some are light. And even though it's early for this, I'm always varying my mark making. Now, do you see the bumps of the texture here? So texture comes forward and attracts attention. Since this is a throwaway sketch, I could take my finger and just smear. But if it was in something important, I would use a stump to do my smearing for me, so I don't have the oils in my fingers yellowing the paper. So I'm always sort of like putting in, taking out, putting in, taking out. And I just start to smear and I'm done. What do you think? I'll just draw to the music. So I am looking for places where the hair can be lighter than the background. The hair can be darker than the background. And there's a figure ground, and then you got to merge the two so no one knows you changed this, and then you can make the hair a little darker than the background again. So I don't want to completely erase areas that I know are wrong, but so I'm just going to just take little bits like lines just to change the size of the drawing a little bit to make her nose bigger. Maybe even, so I'm making a real thin point to the eraser and then going this way. So you kind of put in a light shade, and then you're going to have to take that eraser and you're going to have to draw lines over it, smear over that, and draw over that with other lines. And then you can take your pencil and you start to make light lines over that, over the eraser, over the drawing. So you're looking for places to, I make drawing lines with a pencil. I'm going to take the eraser over that. So there's a layering to the technique. So you're burying some of this earlier stuff that no one's ever going to see. I could even take the stump and draw with the stump over the eraser. Then I can take the eraser over that, using it fatter so it's not the same kind of mark. I could go in there with the charcoal and start to bring attention to a few areas, and now it's going to stand out too much and I'll have to soften it. But there are a few areas you can get away with some dark. And then I'm definitely taking the stump over that to get rid of that. And then I got to take the eraser over that. And I could always take my cotton ball and soften some of this that got too strong. Maybe go a little darker in some of these areas. Now I'm getting a little more courageous. Make it darker behind her so she's lighter. So what the cotton ball does is it gets between the fibers. And then, you know, as soon as I use the cotton ball, now all of a sudden I'm back with the eraser, going over it, trying to vary the way I make a mark. And there's a layering of drawing and erasing and drawing and erasing. So you just kept, you know, pulling some hair over the drawing part, over the erasing. You make some fat lines, you make thin lines. But you are trying to be lighter than the background and then darker than the background. And you can take the stump and you can use it to make some lines. Then you could take your pencil and you could make some darker lines with the pencil. Each time going a little darker, even though I'm going to erase, I'm trying to leave a lot of what I did earlier. Try not to make the same kind of mark everywhere too. That you want to vary your marks. And then I might go over this stuff with the pencil and start to refine her face a little more and dab. Sometimes I just touch with my finger to dab. Then I can go back in there with the charcoal again. And 5 hours later, 10 hours later, or a second day later, you start to finish. But this is my thought concepts. It's kind of what I think about when I'm doing this stuff. A little at a time, I just march my way through. There is a art history thing that I think was taught during the 1840s. It's called checkerboarding, where it's a little darker in this upper right-hand corner. You see it in a lot of Sargent's paintings, and then it's hidden quite a bit. I don't know why it was stopped, why someone stopped teaching it. I've got some theories, but it's a different video. If it's dark here, it's light here. Then if it's dark here, it's light here. Then if it's dark here, it's light here. And it creates this movement that helps the contrapposto. And it's fantastic for when you have multiple figures in a painting. It does have problems. You have to know when it's, where there's strengths and why you would use it and why you wouldn't. The pencil would go well right in here again, where the eyelid is. But then, you can't have that sharp eye, that line, so you're going to have to take that stump and get rid of it. And I think I did it was too strong, so I'll take the eraser and I'll just hatch lines that go the same direction and break it up.